Ladies and gentlemen, so much news to cover today and so little time, so let's not waste any of it and let's just get straight into the news headlines. But before I do, yet again, can I remind you, subscribe to the channel, really does help. So, onto the first news article. Well, that's actually Gaten McKenzie. For those of you who know Gaten McKenzie's personal political standpoint, he doesn't exactly like foreigners very much, specifically illegal foreigners. Now, according to Gaten McKenzie, many of the crimes done in South Africa are done by illegal foreigners. You know, the ones that skip through our chicken mesh border. And these individuals come to South Africa and do, in some situations, the absolute worst to the country that they then come to call their home. So Gaten wants them to, well, go back to where they came from. I've heard that chant a few times in my comment section. Anyway, one of the ways that Gaten says that we could get rid of illegal foreigners is basically to ban them from South Africa's hospitals. Because according to Gaten, if you actually look at many of our hospitals, many of these individuals come from other African countries that don't exactly have a stellar working health service, and they come to South Africa to basically utilize ours. Yep, hard to think that some African countries have a worse health network than we do, and they use us as basically a holiday in order to get better services. But according to Gaten, that's exactly what happens, and one way to deal with the US aid cut and the impact it's having on the South African health service is to ban foreigners. Don't let them use our hospitals and plug up all the beds. Maybe that will make them go home. You can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Is this a good idea or a stupid idea? Talking of the US aid cutting that's been going on with South Africa, specifically in relation to all the foreign aid that the US has cut with South Africa, there is an allegation that is now being made that the US government may look to sanction the ANC specifically, and many individuals have said in my comment section, well, on the basis of what? Well, one way for them to potentially sanction the ANC members is obviously in line with the company they keep, like Iran. But another way that they could potentially be sanctioned is actually in relation to the Zondo Commission findings. So this is news. The Secretary of State, Mark Rubio, has actually noted the Zondo Commission findings, specifically pointed out to him by purportedly solid date, and that these findings themselves may show the ANC to be highly corrupt and in breach of many international money laundering regulations, which may mean that they could be targeted for sanctions. Talking about individuals that may be targeted for sanctions, this is the news that apparently SARS are waiting for many expats to return. And when they are returning, SARS is actually slamming these individuals with high tax bills following tax queries. Now, this is specifically in relation to many individuals who've left South Africa, not declaring their tax obligations to the South African government to have been finalized, and then obviously immigrating. Many of these individuals obviously left South Africa way before these rules were even a thing. So in many instances, they've been out of the country for, in some instances, up to 20, 25 years. Way before SARS decided this whole ending of tax affairs before you immigrate. Now, this becomes interesting because apparently SARS is now catching some of these individuals when they come back, and they're moving back to South Africa, many of them obviously looking to retire in South Africa. And when these individuals return, SARS like, so, where you been? How much money did you make? Here's your tax bill for all the undeclared taxes that you haven't told us about that you accrued over 20 years. And so this is obviously a warning that has gone out to some of these individuals looking to return to South Africa. And that is, make sure that you get your tax affairs in order before you move back. Because the potential implication is you could be hit with a very hard bill. Talking of hard bills, apparently we still haven't been able to agree a budget. This is the news that apparently the DA and the ANC are still slugging it out to try and get this whole VAT issue sorted out. And apparently Cyril Ramaphosa and John Steenhuisen are now directly engaged in the negotiations in order to get a budget passed. But you see, the budget has not yet been agreed by all parties, meaning that the only way for the ANC to clear their budget, they still want this VAT increase, is obviously with the help of the MK party or the EFF. Now, the EFF and the MK party do not want the VAT increase. In fact, the MK party, because they're nutty, says that the only tax that we should be increasing is corporation tax. Because corporates apparently won't leave, according to these morons. It's nice to see these people with all their economic degrees fixing South Africa. Said no one ever. But in any case, the IFP has also come out and said, the DA likes to say that they're the only one responsible for stopping this VAT increase. But they're not. There are other parties in the GNU, and these parties are equally responsible for avoiding the ANC being able to ram through a budget that we consider, including the IFP, consider to be unsavoury. Talking on unsavoury, let's actually move on to the Expropriation Without Compensation Bill, also known as the Expropriation Act. Apparently, the act is about to be used. So, if you may recall, there was this idea that whites' properties were not being expropriated. Well, now they might be. Except, we're actually going to do it in a kosher manner. So Ramaphosa has come out and said that basically he wants to use the Expropriation Act to reclaim many of the buildings in Johannesburg that are basically falling apart and falling into a state of disrepair. Now, even where I live, there are numerous buildings that are in a state of disrepair. And if I use my own city as an example, there was one gentleman who owned a large number of the high-rises in the city centre for a millennia. The guys owned them forever. He's like 84. And he basically doesn't care anymore. Many of these buildings were ransacked during COVID, and it's going to cost the individual more to knock them down than just leave them there to fall into a state of disrepair. But he's just leaving them. Can't really sell them because nobody will buy them. And so the whole CBD is just turning into basically a ghetto. And this is exactly what Ramaphosa has observed, specifically in relation to Johannesburg. And many of the buildings that he considers to be basically ghettos are basically the hijacked buildings that did actually have an owner. They were hijacked. The buildings went to, complete pop. And obviously the state never actually did anything to remove the individuals. Now these buildings are obviously in such a bad state of repair now that you couldn't sell them even if you wanted to. So Ramaphosa says he's going to expropriate them. Then once they become a state asset, he can then possibly evict the individuals. When I asked the question why he didn't evict them when they had private ownership, but that's a conversation for another day. In any case, I actually support this. I think he should expropriate these properties and do something with them, because the current owners, in many instances, are unwilling to, for nothing more than the actual economic state of the buildings. With that being said, he could probably also force a sale and just sell the buildings to the government for like 10 rand, if he wanted to. So there is an argument that he didn't actually have to expropriate it without compensation. He probably could have given some compensation, but then there would have been an argument over what's a fair and reasonable value of the building, which I suppose he doesn't want to get involved in. But in any case, this has led to many individuals saying, well, you see, this is how it starts. You see, they expropriate and they do it very reasonably in a manner that most people would find it difficult to argue with. And then they get nutty. And that may very well be the case. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. Talking of getting nutty, this is also the news that apparently Cyril Ramaphosa, when addressing a funeral of a renowned medical doctor and black consciousness individual. Anyway, this activist apparently has been killed, and he was killed in Pretoria by a hit. And Ramaphosa has noted that criminals in the country apparently have no regard for the lives of South Africans. And I would ask, has he only just noticed this now? Because this has been an issue for the longest time. But apparently when the individuals are somebody close to him, all of a sudden he expresses sorrow over their deaths. Many such deaths, many every single day, but many such deaths. Many of them due to the lack of policing, due to ANC policy. In other words, you're responsible for these individuals' deaths and for criminals running roughshod over the country. It's ironic, isn't it? And talking of ironic, this brings us on to our last news story. And this is the story that the CEO of Agri SA has come out and basically said, does Donald Trump not know what AGOA means to us? In other words, to South Africa. And this is the news that according to him, the actual trade done with the US is positive. In other words, the US actually buys stuff under the duty-free access. That stuff goes through to the US and they actually make some money because the US, as I've said on numerous videos, is a net importer of wealth, not an exporter of our capital. In other words, that they bring us money, they don't take our money. And according to the Agri SA, their leader, they said that BRICS doesn't do that. In fact, in many instances, the BRICS countries actually impose additional tariffs on South Africa in order to stop us actually trading with those countries in terms of our goods. This means that we can't actually go there and dump all of our goods in a cheap fashion in those countries because tariffs are imposed on us to stop us from doing that. This is usually what China does. They come and they flood your market with Chinese rubbish, and then that means that your local economy can't keep up with the actual price because they get priced out by the cheap, slave-made stuff from China. And South Africa is specifically stopped from doing that in many of the countries, the BRICS countries that it trades with. So obviously, when it comes through to AGOA, the loss of AGOA would be hugely important to South African farmers. And I'm going to ask the question, why are we asking if Trump understands what it means? He fully well understands what it means. But he's not trying to penalize you, he's trying to penalize the government. Because the minute you revoke AGOA, it's not just AGOA that suffers. Because as this news article rightly identifies, once AGOA is gone, it means that a number of even the individuals in the steel industry will lose their jobs. Many of the manufacturing industries will no longer find themselves able to actually operate in South Africa because of the tariffs. This will have a knock-on effect on the South African government, specifically in relation to taxes and the high unemployment rate. High unemployment rate generally tends to lead to social discontent, which may lead to forms of regime change. But that's the whole plan, isn't it? I mean, that's what Trump's trying to do. At least that's my opinion. Anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section below. Anyway, until tomorrow, bye.